In a previous video, I talked a little bit about the model strictness checks that Eloquent provides us as a way of catching things that could potentially be silent bugs in our code otherwise. So if we look at this, I just want to show I still have it enabled. And in the previous video, I talked about this lazy loading. Today, I want to talk about this one, which is prevent accessing missing attributes. And the idea here is if I, for example, let's look at some code. Let's say in my controller, I'm gathering some data from the logged in user, and it's supposed to prevent if I accidentally do that, right? So I have a typo in a user or in a model attribute, and what this will do by default is it'll just return null. As soon as I turn that strictness check on, now it will throw an exception, missing attribute exception. And so this is a thing that you would run locally in your tests or just like clicking around in development, and you would hopefully catch some of these bugs before they made their way out into production. So that's just what this is. What I want to talk about today is sort of a wrinkle on this that you might not think about when it comes to writing tests and using factory data. So looking at this controller, we can see that it's taking the logged in user, it's getting 3 properties off of that user model, and it's just passing them down to the view. So I've created this test here, which it's creating a user, very simple test. It creates a user, it logs in, acts as that user, and then it goes and gets that profile page. And I'm not going to make any other assertions. I just want to say right now, this is okay. So do you see any flaws right now? Would you expect there to be an exception? I would not expect there to be one, but I'm going to show you why there is. So if I run this test, we can see if I scroll down, first of all, I get a 500. And if I keep scrolling, I can see I'm getting that missing attribute exception specifically on the attribute bio. All right, so what is going on here? And let me just show one more thing before I answer that. If I set a bio, some bio, and I rerun this test, it'll pass. Okay, so what is going on here? Let's get rid of that. First, if I look at the factory, one thing I want to point out is my default factory state is not setting a bio field. And the reason for that, this is my personal preference, but I like my factory state to be the most simple, the least number of properties necessary for a model in order for it to be persisted to the database. So that bio field is a nullable field. Therefore, if I don't set it in my factory, it should simply be a null value. And that controller, a null would be fine. In fact, the view, it has a check in it that says if their bio is null, then we'll just show bio not set. So there really shouldn't be a bug here, but it's a bit of a quirk in how factories work specifically with that missing attribute strictness check. So I already proved that if I explicitly set the bio, it's fine. But what's actually happening if I don't set it, and if let's just dump out this user and run that. Let's make this a little bit bigger. If I scroll down and I look at attributes, there is no bio attribute on this user model. That is why I'm getting this error. Now, what I want to show is if I just do this, the reason this bug only happens in tests is because of a quirk of how factories work. So if I rerun this test, and all I'm doing is I'm just refreshing the model. I'm just pulling it right back out of the database, not making any other changes to it. Now, if I look at this user, well, there are all the other nullable fields. So bio is there and some other ones that we haven't talked about. So let's make that small again. So right now, if I just get rid of this, this will make my test pass. Okay, and the only reason it's working is because I'm rehydrating that model out of the database and not relying on just like the in-memory representation that the factory has given me for use in my test. So that is one workaround. But so first of all, I just want to say, be aware of that issue. If you run into this, this is what's happening and why. You could just do a refresh. Here's what I would do. I would actually say this is not a very good test, right? So if I'm making assertions here, I'm going to do stuff like I want to assert what view is being returned. And I would say you'd want to go a step further and say view has, what did we call that? on this here, profile data, right? So it's got profile data. And I would probably even go a step further and be like, well, like, what are the fields that I'm getting in here? It's name, it's email, it's bio. And then I would want to say, what is the name? Bob, right? What is the email? bob@test.com. And what is the bio? I am not Robert. Okay. So that is what a real test, I think, should look like. If I'm not asserting those things, like, what am I actually testing here? Like, I'm just testing that the controller is wired up and that, a user can be authenticated. I mean, it's kind of a weak test. So if I'm actually making proper test assertions, then I would actually want to set all of those fields in my factory, right? So, and if I do that, this whole problem just goes away. So something to keep in mind, if you are in a very specific testing scenario where you really don't care about some of the data that's on a model that's going to be accessed later in a view or in a controller, you could use that trick to just refresh the model and then it goes away. But just be aware, this could happen, and it might be a sign that you're not actually setting up your test data properly.